everybody, and welcome to this half-year bullet journal setup video. I have a custom here to change my bullet journal every 6 months, so that's exactly what we're gonna do today, and I'll share the whole migration process with you. This way just personally makes more sense to me, since most journals don't have enough pages to be used for the whole year, and I don't like the idea of starting a new journal in a random point of the year. I know some of you can relate to that, but anyway, this time I decided to change it up from my Archer and Olive notebooks that I've been using for the past year and test out the Scribbles That Matter journal for the first time. So many of you have recommended this to me, and let me say, I've been so impressed by this so far. The paper is 160 GSM and it has the same clean white color as the Archer and Olive journals. The beginning and end of this journal also have some pre-made pages that I don't personally need, but they don't bother me that much either. I actually didn't even fill this pre-made key page for the bullet codes, you know, just for funsies. I remember my codes by now, but I'll do a full review of this journal later. So now let's finally get into the setup itself. So I flipped my way to the first empty spread, and I wanted to start this bullet journal with some kind of a mood spread for the rest of this year. I often leave the beginning pages of my journal super simple and minimal because they are the ones I'll use the whole time I'm using my journal, and I think this time I might have gone even further in the minimal direction than in the past. I got super inspired by all kinds of beautiful minimalist designs, and I tried to keep the whole setup very airy and sophisticated. I'm not using any bright colors, and all the drawings will be super simple while still creating an overall pretty look. So here in the first page, I just drew this leaf branch, which is surrounded by some geometric lines. I added a light layer of color to the leaves with my gray brush pen, and that was it for the decorations. As for the opening message I chose, well, I think we can all probably agree that this year hasn't necessarily been what we were all expecting. Many plans have probably been postponed or cancelled also from your end, which is why I wanted to remind myself here that there's time. Life is long, there's a new year after this, and if everything didn't happen exactly as we wanted this year, there's still time to make up for it in the future. I kind of continued this message on the next page as well, where I chose a short quote that personally really spoke to me, and this one says, "Don't rush something you want to last forever." What wise and important words to remember, and definitely a message that I want to remind my impatient self even more often. Some kind of a quote or message is such a good way to set the mood for your bullet journal, so I hope you pick something up that personally fits your current life and resonates with you, and write it down so you can see it every time you pick up your journal. But after this intro page, let's get into the actual setup now. So something I always like to set up in the beginning part is this kind of a year at a glance page, where I just write down all the months so that they can be used to quickly see the days of the upcoming year. I started this from July 2020 because that's when I'm personally starting this journal, but if you're watching this video later, just start the months from any point of the year you need. I always like to use pretty skinny pen for a page like this because it really helps to keep the numbers cleaner. Then next to this one, I'm gonna set up a super simple future log. I didn't really use this in my past journal because who are we kidding? I don't have any plans. I didn't even leave my house in like 3 months, but maybe that will change in the end of the year. Who knows? I think there's still hope. I only need a couple rows per month, so I fit all the next 6 months on this one page, but please modify everything to your own needs if you need more space than this. I personally thought these double lines and minimal numbers were enough for this page, and after everything was set, I just flipped my way to the next one. So this next whole section will be the more important ones for me in this setup, and this will be all about the yearly goals. Now you probably set up some goals too in the beginning of this year, but since a lot has happened since then, I think the middle point of the year is a really good time to take a look at those goals and review them a little bit. There might be some new things you've learned or new ideas you got during these months, and maybe all those yearly goals are not that essential for your life anymore. Also, you know, the whole chaos in the world adds its own spice in the mix. So I guess I'm just really trying to give you a permission here to take a look at those goals and just throw away everything that doesn't serve you anymore. So after I was done adding the title and some simple geometric lines again on this page, I left room for these two sections to write something down about the goals I'm keeping and the ones I'm changing. This will be just very overall type of page that will just force me to spend some time on this. Then on the next one, I started to actually write those goals down. So personally, I have kind of 3 bigger areas for this year that I want to learn about or focus on. And of course, there are so many small steps to take under all of these, which is why I first just wanted to lay them out here in a more general way. We'll get a little bit more specific in the next page, but here I just wanted to leave some room for myself to write down something about these goals, like why I want to focus on them, what's the end goal, how it's related to anything I want to achieve in life, because I think spending some time on questions like that will really help you to have more motivation to actually give these goals and eventually achieve them. So this page looks super simple again, with just this line thingy to add a more interesting look, and I think the cursive handwriting adds its own element on this design. But anyway, as I said, the next page will be more on the practical action step side. So I took all those 3 goals I wrote down, and now I give each of them a progress line and 10 slots for smaller actions to take. So how this works is whenever I cross off one of the actions, I'll color one section from the progress line, so it will be a nice visual indication of where I'm going with my goals. I'm gonna write down things here that I can hopefully pick up and add to my monthly goals later, and I think many of them will be similar to what I set up in the beginning of this year, but of course there will be so many new goals and actions to take as well. Anyway, I think this page was pretty straightforward, so let's now move on to the next one. This will be more of a personal page for me, so I'm sorry if it's not that useful, but maybe you could at least steal the concept and use it for something you're personally going through in your life. So I moved to Japan in March this year, and I kind of want to keep a log of my thoughts and feelings about living here. So that's basically what this page will be for me. I first wrote a bigger title again with the same cursive font, and just a quick point on that, as you can see, I always like to use this fake calligraphy style that don't require you to use a real calligraphy pen. So I simply make each downstroke of the letters slightly thicker, so it just adds that calligraphy look, but it's much easier to create, at least in my opinion. I get a lot of questions about the font I'm using, and I'm planning to do a whole video about that in the future. It's not exactly any specific font out there, it's more of just a mixture of different fonts I've used as an inspiration, and then it just kinda developed into this over time, and I feel like it's still constantly changing every month. But anyway, back to this page. So I'll write my feelings about living in Japan in July and then again on December. And I think it will be really fun to compare my experiences in the end of the year. Then I brought back those loose leaf decorations from the first page. So I just used my very thin 003 micron pen again to create these very light leaves. For me, sketching everything with a pencil first really helps, and it's something I still continue doing even after bullet journaling for 2 years now. It just somehow takes away some of the pressure of getting everything right on the first go. So that's it about this spread, and now let's move on to something that I think many of you will find more helpful. So this next page will be entirely for money stuff, and I actually wanted to upgrade my money tracking method quite a lot from my previous setups. So I started again with a title and with some more straight lines, of course. Then the first little section here on the left is for any fixed expenses that will pretty likely stay the same or at least similar throughout this year. So this could, for example, be rent, any subscriptions you might have, maybe phone bills and stuff like that that usually stays the same. And I want to calculate the total cost of those expenses here. Then we are moving on to the center part of this page, and I actually wanted to have quite a lot of room for each month, so I decided to go ahead and create this Dutch door layout so that we can have one of these vertical columns for each individual month. I added a monthly title always to the top, and then I followed it with a section for income, savings, and expenses. I think all of these are something that really depends on a person, so please modify everything here however you like and track whatever you find necessary in your life. For me personally, I feel like, especially now that I'm living together with my husband, there are so many more moving parts compared to when I was studying and living on my own in Finland, so that's why I wanted all this extra space. I'll fill all these columns later, and then lastly we still have this space on the right side of this spread. I thought of something that would work for the whole time period again, and then settled for a wish list of some sort. At least I think it's a fun thing to have on your money spread, since it gives you a little boost of motivation for all the saving. I finished these pages with some more leaf decorations and made them maybe slightly bigger this time. I really enjoyed this almost undone look, though it looks much nicer from afar than up close. But these almost messy, little bit crooked lines gave a little bit less polished look for these pages. Then we still have a few spreads to go, so let's move on. Next I wanted to set up a bookshelf page that I've probably had in all my yearly setups. Even if you don't read that many books, I think a page like this is a great place to write down any interesting books you've heard of, and then you can always come back to this page and pick up a book when you have time for it. So I started this page again with a cursive title and then drew some more line decorations and leaves. As you can probably pick up, I try to keep all the designs slightly different from each other. So if you would lay all these pages next to each other, they would almost create a nice collection. Speaking of that, by the way, this theme will be available as a digital version on my Etsy shop, and I'll probably add a slightly more colorful option there, as well as a version for the whole year. The link to my shop is in the description, but now let's get back to this page. So I usually list both real books and audiobooks here, and then I use these small symbols to track which books I've started and which I've finished. The little book sign means that I've started the book, and then whenever I finish one, I give it a rating from 0 to 10. I wanted to leave a lot of room for myself just in case, so I didn't add anything more to the right page. But after that, I guess it's time to move on again and set up the last spread of this setup. So this one again is probably not that useful for all of you either, but I needed a space to write down some video ideas. I think there must be something similar you could use a page like this for, maybe some kind of a bucket list, or maybe ideas related to your work or passion project, or maybe you can use this space for something you like to use in your own setup. I think we know the drill with the decorations by now, so after creating a simple title, I drew some lines again to the sides. You could even take some of the lines all the way to the next page, so it adds this kind of fun, non-symmetrical effect. the very last page will be something that I've loved to have in my past setups, and this is my inspiration board. You could use this to draw images or even print out some kind of inspiration photos, but I just like to write down stuff that I got inspired by in a list form. So I just simply write down what was it that inspired me and then kind of what was the content or message. So this could be a video I watched, maybe a quote I read, a podcast episode, or just some advice or even a person I found online. These pages for me are for the times you feel super excited about something, and I think it's always better to write that thing down for your future self, you know, for the days when you're maybe not feeling so great. But yeah, I guess we finally made it to the end of this half year setup. I know decoration wise this was super simple, but I hope it will be functional and fun to use more than anything. I hope those of you who like more simple designs got a lot of ideas out of this, and for everyone else, the July Plan With Me video will be up next week, and I promise it will have a lot brighter decorations. If this was the first video you saw from me, I would love you to stick around and maybe even subscribe to this channel. But I guess that's it for this time. Thank you guys so much for watching as always. I hope you're having an amazing day or night wherever you are, and see you in my next one. Bye bye!